Ethan Hale had never imagined that a simple assignment could lead him to a world as dazzling as Velastra. The planet hung in the velvet darkness of space like a jewel, its surface shimmering with crystalline structures that reflected the light of 3 distant suns. Humans had only recently made first contact with the Velarith, a species whose towering figures and glowing skin were as alien as their rigid culture. And yet, here he was, part of a small delegation sent to study Valastra's energy systems, a mission that was supposed to be about science and diplomacy, not adventure. As Ethan stepped off the transport, he felt the cool hum of Valastra beneath his boots. The city stretched endlessly, crystalline spires reaching toward the skies in perfect geometric patterns. The streets were filled with Velarith moving gracefully, their bodies radiating a soft internal light that shifted colors with their emotions. Humans were still a novelty here, and he could feel the curious gazes following him wherever he went. It made him uneasy, but also a little excited. Humans had always thrived on being the underdogs, the unexpected factor in every equation. He reminded himself that this trip was about observation, about learning, nothing more. During the delegation's first evening, they attended a formal reception hosted by the Velarith Council. Ethan walked among the guests with careful politeness, noting how everything was precise, controlled, almost too perfect. Conversations were measured, every gesture significant. It was unlike anything he had experienced. Then, among the crowd of dignitaries, he saw her, Princess Selyra. She was taller than any human he had ever met, her skin a radiant cascade of blue and silver, her eyes a bright amber that seemed to look straight through him. She moved with a grace that was almost hypnotic, and yet there was something disarming about her gaze. It lingered on him with curiosity, a spark of amusement hiding beneath the formal restraint of her posture. Most Velarith kept strangers at a careful distance, but she seemed drawn to his very presence. Ethan found himself at a demonstration of a human-designed energy stabilizer, a small device meant to help Valastra harness the volatile energy from their planet's core. He knelt over the machine, adjusting delicate components, unaware that someone was watching him closely. "You are quite meticulous for a human," a soft voice said behind him. He looked up and froze. Princess Selyra stood there, her expression faintly amused. Her eyes, warm and golden, met his, and his heart skipped a beat. Thank you, Your Highness," he stammered. She smiled, a subtle, almost shy smile that seemed at odds with the regal aura she carried. "Tell me, why don't you date me, human?" she whispered softly. Ethan's head spun. Did she just ask him to date her? And an alien princess at that? His mind raced as he tried to process the words. On Earth, this would have been impossible, absurd even, but Valastra was no Earth. The very air seemed charged with possibility, and the simplicity of her question struck him harder than he expected. I don't know what to say," he admitted honestly, his voice barely above a whisper. His hands shook slightly as he returned to the stabilizer, pretending to adjust a knob that didn't need adjusting. Selyra tilted her head slightly, as if she expected nothing but honesty. In that quiet moment, something passed between them, an understanding that transcended their species. She was curious about humans, yes, but more than that, she was curious about him. The evening progressed, but Ethan could not focus. Every glance from Selyra seemed to linger a little longer than politeness demanded. He noticed the way her attention to him contrasted with the cold formality she showed others. The Velarith were known for their discipline, their control over emotion, but here was a princess, the most powerful figure on the planet, showing vulnerability in the smallest, most human way. Over the next few days, Ethan found himself learning more about Valastra than he ever expected. He toured the crystal cities, studied energy systems, and even participated in cultural exchanges meant to bridge human and Velorith understanding. And yet, his thoughts kept returning to her. Every time she appeared in the room, his pulse quickened. She laughed at small things he said, questioned his assumptions, and in subtle ways let him see glimpses of her personality beyond the royal facade. But Velastra was not without danger. Rumors whispered through the council chambers spoke of factions that disapproved of human influence, factions that believed outsiders could disrupt the careful balance of power. Ethan sensed that he was walking on a delicate edge. Every interaction with Salira carried potential consequences he could not fully understand. One afternoon, while observing an energy conduit deep within the city, Ethan was startled by a soft voice. "You work with such determination. It is admirable." He turned to see Salira standing just a few feet away, her expression serious now, but still tinged with warmth. He could see the intelligence in her gaze, the way she seemed to analyze not just his work, but him. "Thank you, Princess," he replied. I want to understand your world, your people. Everything here is incredible." She stepped closer, lowering her voice. "It is rare for humans to see beyond the surface. Most focus only on what they can use or how they can survive. But you notice the small details. You notice life itself." Her words unsettled him, and not in the way warnings normally did. This was different. This was a connection that had no immediate rules, no manuals or protocols. It was just human to human, almost, even if she was not human. Later that evening, the delegation held a formal banquet in honor of the visiting humans. Ethan sat quietly at his assigned place, noting the precision of every Velorith gesture, the careful balance of conversation and ritual. Salira approached him during a lull in the event. "Would you like to walk with me?" she asked softly, motioning toward a balcony that overlooked the glittering city below. Ethan hesitated for a heartbeat before nodding. Together they stepped out into the cool night air, the city lights reflecting off the crystalline spires in a kaleidoscope of color. For a long moment, neither spoke. The sounds of the banquet drifted behind them, distant and muted. Finally, she broke the silence. "You have courage, Ethan Hale, but you must know, showing interest in me is not without risk. There are those who would see your presence here as a threat." Ethan swallowed, feeling the weight of her words. "I know," he said quietly, "but I can't just ignore how I feel. Not anymore." Salira looked at him with a soft, almost imperceptible smile. "Perhaps that is the difference between humans and Velorith. You act despite the risks. We hesitate. We plan and calculate until fear stops us from moving at all." For the first time since arriving, Ethan felt like he belonged somewhere outside Earth. Here, on Velastra, he was not just a guest or a diplomat. He was a person capable of changing someone's perspective, even a princess's. As the suns dipped below the horizon, casting the city in a glow of pink and violet, Ethan and Salira walked in silence. There was no need for words. The unspoken understanding between them carried more weight than any conversation could. But danger lingered. Hidden eyes watched their interactions, and whispered conversations among council members hinted at unease. Humans were clever but fragile. They were unpredictable, a fact that made some Velorith uneasy. And in that unease, there was the seed of conflict, a challenge Ethan did not yet understand. Yet for all the uncertainty, a single truth remained. The spark between human and princess had been ignited, subtle but undeniable. And for Ethan, it was enough to make his heart flutter in ways he had never experienced before. As he returned to his quarters that night, Ethan stared out at the shimmering city, the memory of Salira's soft voice echoing in his mind. "Why don't you date me, human?" she had asked. The question was simple, almost impossible in its context, and yet it had changed everything. Somewhere deep inside, he knew that the answer would not come easily. But for the first time in his life, he felt ready to face the impossible. Not just for himself, but for the connection he had discovered with someone utterly alien, yet profoundly familiar. And as Valastra's 3 sons disappeared behind the crystalline horizon, Ethan realized that his journey had only just begun. The next morning, Valastra shimmered under the light of its 3 suns, casting long reflections across the crystalline spires. Ethan walked through the streets, feeling the hum of the planet beneath his feet. The city seemed alive, as if it sensed the tension growing between tradition and change. He had barely slept, thinking about Princess Salira's soft question and the spark it had ignited. Yet danger was not far behind. Rumors of opposition to humans had been growing quietly, and he could sense the eyes that followed him wherever he went. There were those on Valastra who believed humans were too unpredictable, too emotional, and too reckless to influence their society. To them, Ethan was not a person. They saw him as a problem. Despite the threats, Ethan felt something different in Salira. Over the next few days, she found ways to spend time with him, often under the guise of studying energy conduits or observing human inventions. She asked questions, not just about his work, but about Earth, about humans, about emotions and choices. He answered honestly, never knowing if his words were safe or dangerous. "You see the world differently," she told him one afternoon, while they inspected a flowing energy channel that glowed like liquid light. "Humans have something we Velarith rarely understand, courage to act without knowing the outcome." Ethan smiled faintly. "Sometimes we act recklessly, yes, but it has its advantages." Her eyes sparkled, and for a moment she looked less like a princess and more like a young woman curious about life beyond her world. It was that glimpse of vulnerability that made him care for her more deeply. He realized that humans had always succeeded against the odds because they dared to act with heart, and now he was determined to show that same heart on Valastra. Then came the sabotage. One evening, during a demonstration of a new energy stabilizer designed to harness Valastra's unique crystal currents, the machine began to shake violently. Energy arcs flew through the air, sending light streaking across the room like lightning. Alarmed, the council members called for immediate shutdowns, and the delegations scrambled to prevent disaster. Ethan's heart pounded. This was no accident. He had prepared the stabilizer carefully, double-checking every component. Someone wanted to make him look incompetent, or worse. Princess Salira appeared at his side, her calm aura a contrast to the chaos around them. "We need to move quickly," she said. "Trust your instincts, human." Ethan's mind raced. Velarith technology was precise, their systems demanding exact inputs. But he had something they lacked: improvisation. With careful movements, he rerouted energy flows, adjusted the conduits, and stabilized the machine just as the room would have exploded otherwise. The crowd gasped as the machine settled, its glow steady once more. Salira's eyes shone with admiration. "You saved this demonstration. You saved us all." Ethan shook his head. "I just did what humans do best. We adapt." After the event, whispers spread through the council chambers. Some were impressed, but others were alarmed. A human had succeeded where a Velarith might have failed. Some saw it as proof of potential alliance, others saw it as a threat. The tension on the planet grew, and Ethan understood that every step forward now carried more weight than ever. In the privacy of her chambers later that evening, Salira approached him. "You are brave," she said softly. "Not because you faced danger, but because you faced it with your heart. That is unusual." Ethan laughed nervously, unsure how to respond. "I just do what I can. I can't hide who I am." She smiled, stepping closer. That is why I am drawn to you, Ethan Hale. Not because you are human, not because you are clever, but because you are real. You do not pretend to be perfect. His heart fluttered again, the same way it had the first night she whispered her impossible question. He wanted to tell her how he felt, but words seemed too fragile for what he wanted to express. Instead, he nodded, letting his presence speak instead of his voice. But the opposition had not given up. A faction within the council, opposed to humans influencing Valastra's culture, began spreading accusations. They claimed that Ethan had intentionally sabotaged the energy stabilizer, trying to undermine the planet's progress. The council demanded that Ethan be removed from the planet immediately, threatening to nullify all diplomatic agreements. Salira refused to back down. She presented evidence that showed the sabotage had been engineered, not caused by Ethan. Her defiance shocked the council. Velarith were not accustomed to anyone, let alone a princess, standing up against tradition so openly. She was risking her reputation, her position, and even her safety. "You see what humans teach us," she said to the council. "They teach us to act with heart, even when fear tells us to retreat. Ethan's courage saved us. Can we not learn from it too?" Her words carried weight, her presence unwavering. Slowly, murmurs of agreement spread among the council members. The anti-human faction found themselves isolated. Their attempts to remove Ethan thwarted by the courage of the princess and the ingenuity of a human. In the days that followed, Velastra began to change, subtly but unmistakably. The council approved a cultural exchange program with Earth, recognizing the value humans could bring beyond technology, creativity, curiosity, and a willingness to act when others hesitated. Ethan and Salira found moments of quiet amidst the political turbulence. They walked through crystal gardens that glowed softly under the three suns, talked about distant planets, and shared dreams they barely understood. With every interaction, their bond grew stronger, more natural, and less constrained by politics or species. One evening, as the three suns dipped behind the horizon, casting the city in a warm golden glow, Salira turned to him. Her eyes were bright, her expression free of hesitation. "So, will you date me, human?" Ethan laughed, a mixture of relief and joy. He had waited for this moment, and the risks no longer seemed terrifying. "Yes," he said, smiling widely. "I will." Her laughter rang out, soft and musical, and for the first time, Velastra felt lighter, freer. It was a small victory, perhaps, but significant. Humans had shown that courage, kindness, and heart could influence even the most structured, precise world. News of their acceptance spread slowly at first, then quickly. Humans and Velarith began working together on new projects, sharing knowledge and culture. Where there had been suspicion, curiosity began to grow. Where there had been hesitation, courage blossomed. And through it all, Ethan and Salira continued to explore their connection, demonstrating that trust and affection could transcend species and tradition. Yet, the true impact of their story was not just their personal bond. Other humans, new to Velastra, arrived with ideas and courage, inspired by Ethan's example. The Velarith started to see that the human spirit, messy, unpredictable, emotional, could complement their precision, leading to discoveries and progress that neither species could achieve alone. Ethan realized that their relationship symbolized something far greater than romance. It symbolized the human capacity to adapt, to inspire, and to bring hope even in worlds far from home. He had come to Velastra as an engineer, a visitor, a diplomat. But he had become something more, a bridge between species, a reminder that heart mattered just as much as logic. Standing on a balcony one night, looking out over the glowing city, he felt a hand slip into his. Salira's presence grounded him in a way he had never expected. Together, they watched the reflections of light ripple across the spires, and Ethan understood something simple and profound. Humans had changed Velastra, not by force or dominance, but by being human. And in that moment, as he squeezed her hand, he knew the journey had only just begun. There would be challenges ahead, as there always were. But with courage, curiosity, and heart, humans could shine anywhere, even among the stars. The night deepened, but the city remained alive, vibrant, and full of possibility. Ethan smiled, feeling the warmth of Sayalira's hand in his. Their story was no longer just about two individuals. It was about a human spirit that could touch the far reaches of the galaxy, inspiring hope, courage, and change wherever it went. And as Velastra glimmered under the three suns that now had set beyond the horizon, Ethan Hale finally felt a sense of belonging. On this alien world, with an alien princess, and in a story that was uniquely, undeniably human.